now continue with Perek Aleph, Mishnah Yud Aleph. Talyan Oimer, Chachamim, sages, teachers, Rabbeim of Klal Yisrael, Hizharu b'divreichem. Be careful with your words. What does that mean? Before a Rebbe says something, he needs to think it over very carefully and make sure that whatever he is teaching is 100% clear, concise, and understandable. He leaves no room for any misinterpretations. We don't live in a vacuum. Whatever we teach tends to travel. Not only does it circulate amongst our Talmidim, but it circulates well beyond. Just imagine now, if we taught an unclear lesson, it's possible that our teaching will become misconstrued, and it's possible that the students that are not on the highest level will have trouble understanding it, and perhaps will walk away with an unclear interpretation. And then, worse than that is, since there are people in our world that try to use the Torah to advance their agendas, and sometimes actually use Torah teachings to hurt authentic Torah, now they have teachings from this Rebbe that they can lean on. So a lot of problems can potentially materialize from a shir, for instance a shir in halacha, not prepared properly and not given over properly. Now it's possible that a chacham or a Rebbe may say to himself that he doesn't need to worry, and it's not important that the shir be picture perfect. He knows his Talmidim, he knows the people he's giving the shir to. They'll surely understand what he's saying. Somebody doesn't understand, they'll ask clarity, but it seems clearly from the Mishnah that one is not to rely on that kind of thinking. A Rebbe also has to be concerned to conduct themselves according to the way they teach. We know, the Gemara says, that a person needs to be a Noah Dorish with Noah Mekayim. He's got to teach properly and he's got to fulfill that which he teaches. Imagine a Rebbe teaching Talmidim to conduct themselves a certain way, and then Chas v'Sholom, heaven forbid, they see that their Rebbe is not conducting himself in the way he taught them. What kind of problem can come out of that? So it's not just about what we say, but even more important is what we do. We cannot say to Talmidim, do as I say, but don't do as I do. There cannot be a contradiction between the way we teach and the way we conduct ourselves. And this goes even for parents. Parents too need to be very, very careful that children should not see a contradiction in their conduct. Whatever we teach, we need to make sure that we do. And that's why Avtalin comes ahead and says to us that it's incorrect thinking to think that we don't have to be so careful and so medagdic in what we say and what we do. Because as Yidden live in Golus, we never know what the tomorrow is going to bring. It's possible, as the Mishnah says, further, Shema tachuvu choivas golos. It's very possible that we will be forced into exile. Possible that this exile could be because of past sins. It can also be possible that the exile is for the sin of teaching incorrectly and causing our Talmidim and other people to apply the halacha incorrectly. And as a result of that, they will permit what is forbidden and come across as if it's kosher. And we know that sins create damage in our spiritual lives. And as a result of that, the Rebbe may wind up going into exile or leaving the city he's in, and having wind up going into another city, and the city he winds up, the Mishnah says, he may be exiled to a place which is not such a makam Torah, where it's mayim roim. Torah, as we know, is compared to water. Just like water gives life, Torah gives life. But that's only if it's fresh, healthy water. But if it's mayim roim, contaminated water, then the water has an opposite effect. And people who misinterpret Torah, they are a danger to Klal Yisrael. Now what happens if you are exiled into a city and you find yourself living amongst not such Yireh Shamayim, not such God-fearing Jews? And now the Rebbe gives a shir, and this shir is also not so clear. Just like the Shuirim he used to give, that were also not so clear. So it's possible that when in the Makam Torah he gave a shir, and it was not so clear and there was some misinterpretation, just imagine what's going to happen over here now in this city, where you don't have such learned Jews. and they hear a shit that's not so 100% clear, they also will come to misinterpret. And to add to the problem, since we know that Talmidim are supposed to follow their Rebbe, what happens if the Talmidim from the first city follow the Rebbe to the next city, and now in the next city they are exposed to the Talmidim of the new city, who are of a lesser caliber than they are, and they're misinterpreting the Rebbe's teachings, and they're having a bad influence on the people, and also having an influence on the original Rebbe's Talmidim. And as a result of the confusion, this one says this is what the Rebbe meant, this one says this is what the Rebbe meant, this one says this is the halacha, the other one says that's the halacha. At the end of the day, many times the halacha is going to be violated. And what can become even more problematic is what happens if the Rebbe passes away and it's impossible for the Talmidim to clarify the questions that they have. So the Mishnah says, continues to say, and then v'yishtra Talmidim abom achareichem, and the other Talmidim are going to come. What's going to happen with these students that come afterwards? They're going to absorb the unclear teachings, and they will also make mistakes, chas v'shalom. And what is forbidden becomes permissible. Chalila, what's usher is mutter, and what's treif is kosher, and what's tameh is tar. And what we have from this is confusion and chilul Hashem. What caused this chilul Hashem? What causes this domino effect, which results in improper adherence to the Torah? Very simply put, and this is what the Mishnah is trying to teach us over here, that Shuirim, lessons imparted to Talmidim that were not adequately prepared, that were not presented clearly, that leave room for misinterpretation and confusion, which causes Talmidim who hear these teachings pass it on to others. And what causes this chilul Hashem? So the Mishnah is imparting to us something that we need to really absorb into our consciousness. It's not just Rebbes or parents. It applies to anybody. The teachings that are imparted to children, whether they are our children, whether they are our Talmidim, were not adequately prepared, that were not presented clearly, that leave room for misinterpretation and confusion, cause the student to walk away not knowing how to fulfill that which is required of him properly. And then they pass these teachings on to others, or they say this is what Tati said, this is what Mommy said, this is what the Rebbe said, and this causes serious violations of Torah. This does not allow people to fulfill what is required of them, and which the Mishnah says at times can bring with it the punishment of a Torah scholar dying prematurely. And that's where the Mishnah ends off, and this kind of conduct causes a defilement of Kvod Shemayim, that the honor of Hashem is desecrated. When people see that, for instance, young Talmidei Chachamim pass away in their youth, they begin to have all different types of questions. Zu Torah v'zu schara. This is Torah and this is the reward. They have second doubts about the promise in the Torah, that it's an Eitz Chaim, hila machzikim ba. They say, what does the Torah mean when it says K'hu chayecha? This is your life, v'erech yamecha, and the length of your days. Many questions come up because what they see happening seems to be contradictory to what they were taught and what they expect. And they can walk away chas v'shalom thinking that the Torah doesn't have the power to protect and save, even though the Gemara says Torah megino matzla. So what greater chilul Hashem can there be if you didn't lose their confidence in the power of Torah and doubt the truth of Torah? So all those that are teaching have a great responsibility, which Avtalion says we cannot take for granted. He's telling us basically that Torah is a diamond that must be handled with the utmost care and respect by all those who are teaching it.